In the warm village where every whisper traveled faster than the wind, Obora lived his days full of hope and hard work. Now married to the beautiful Nia, his heart was light, his steps even lighter. Every morning before he left for the market, or the fields, Nia would kiss him softly and smile so warmly that all his doubts melted away. She was the perfect wife in everyone's eyes, polite, charming, a beauty beyond compare. But deep inside, a quiet unease started to grow in Obora's heart. It wasn't something he could explain, even to himself. It was just small things, Nia laughing a little too long with strangers, receiving secret smiles from men passing by, and the way she sometimes seemed too eager to send him off on his travels. He tried to shake off the thoughts. "I trust her," he would say to himself again and again, but trust without proof is like walking a bridge made of mist. One evening, after returning from a long business trip, Obora arrived home earlier than planned. He wanted to surprise Nia, perhaps find her humming a tune while cooking, or weaving under the porch like the women in old songs. But as he reached the doorstep, he heard something that froze him. Laughter. Male laughter. Inside his house. His heart slammed against his ribs. Carefully, he stepped back, deciding not to storm in. He needed to be sure. Rumors could destroy a marriage, but truth had to be faced with steady hands. That night, Obora made a decision, a dangerous, painful decision. He would pretend to lose his sight, fake blindness, and see if the world looked different when people thought he could not see them. He spread the news the next morning. At the village healer's hut, he cried out in grief, my eyes have gone dark, I cannot see." The old healer examined him and, confused by the lack of any clear injury, shook his head. "It must be a curse or a sorrow too deep for the body to bear," the healer said sadly. The villagers murmured among themselves, pity in their voices. When Nia heard the news, she rushed to him, tears in her eyes. "Obora, my love, how could this happen?" she cried, holding him tightly. Obora, with a broken smile, touched her face, gently. "It is God's will," he whispered, "but your voice is my light now." Inside, Obora's heart twisted in pain. He hated lying to her, to anyone, but he needed to know the truth. Was her love as pure as the rivers of his childhood, or was it as dirty as the gutters after a storm? Days turned into weeks. Blind. Obora sat quietly at home, pretending to stumble, pretending to need help finding his way. Nia was attentive, so loving at first, feeding him, helping him bathe, whispering sweet words at night. But as time passed, small cracks began to show. Obora would sit under the shade of their porch, listening harder than ever before in his life. He heard Nia laughing with men passing by, softer now, more careful, but not careful enough. He noticed the way she left the house for hours, claiming to fetch water but returning with nothing but flushed cheeks. And sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet, Obora heard footsteps, 2 pairs, not one, whispered words, giggling. His heart darkened like the night sky without stars. He knew now his blindness had opened his eyes wider than ever before. Still he said nothing. Still he waited, because if he was to catch Nia's betrayal, it had to be clear, undeniable. He would not confront her on a rumor or a suspicion. He would catch her in the act, and when he did, the entire kingdom would hear how a blind man saw better than all their sharp eyes combined. The days dragged on slowly, heavy like stones on Obora's chest. Every morning, he would sit quietly by the doorway, pretending to gaze blankly into the air, while Nia moved around, humming to herself. Her steps had changed. They weren't hurried or worried anymore. She moved like a woman without fear, without guilt weighing her shoulders down. Or maybe, Obora thought bitterly, she had simply gotten used to lying. One afternoon, while Nia was away, Zikora visited. He sat close beside Obora, his voice low, full of pity. "My brother," he said, "I have heard things. I didn't want to bring you more sadness. But you must know, Nia is not the woman you believe she is." Obora stayed silent, keeping his face blank, the perfect act of a blind man unaware of the world. Zikora hesitated, then added, I saw her yesterday, by the river, laughing with another man. He held her hand. Obora's fingers twitched slightly, but he forced himself to smile weakly, as if he could barely understand. Maybe she has friends, he said softly, his voice hollow. Zikora's mouth tightened. He knew his friend was lying to himself, but he also knew Obora needed to see, truly see, before he could believe. Later that evening, when Nea returned, she kissed Obora's forehead gently and asked, "How was your day, my love?" "Long," Obora murmured, leaning into her touch. "I missed hearing your voice." Nea laughed a little too loudly and helped him into the house, but when she thought he was asleep, she slipped outside again. Obora heard the door creak softly, heard her footsteps fade into the darkness. His fists clenched under the blanket. His heart ached to follow, to tear the truth out of the night itself, but he forced himself to stay still. No, it wasn't the right time yet. The next morning, Obora called Zikora. "I need your help," he said, his voice low. Zikora leaned in close. "Anything, brother." "I want you to follow her," Obora said. "Follow Nea. See where she goes. See who she meets. Tell me everything. I can no longer trust the eyes of others. I need yours." Zikora nodded grimly. "I will not fail you." For the next few days, Zikora became Obora's shadow in secret. He followed Nea when she left the house, keeping his distance. He watched her meet a man by the river, a young farmer named Ifeanyi. They would sit close together, hands brushing, faces inches apart, sharing laughter that should have been Obora's alone. But the worst came on a stormy evening when the sky cracked with thunder and the earth smelled of rain. Zikora saw Nea kiss Ifeanyi under the large baobab tree, hidden from the village but not hidden from his sharp, angry eyes. Zikora ran back to Obora that night, soaking wet, his face pale with rage. "It is true," he said, voice shaking. "I saw them, with my own eyes, there is no doubt now." Obora sat in silence, the fire from the hearth casting strange, flickering shadows on his face. His heart burned, but his mind stayed cold. He had been betrayed. The woman he had loved more than himself, the woman he had trusted against all warning, had torn his heart apart. But he would not cry. He would not scream. No. Obora had learned something in his travels. Pain was best served cold, and betrayal must be answered with shame. He would not simply confront her, he would humiliate her. He would tear the mask from her face in front of the whole kingdom. And so a plan began to form. Slow, cruel, perfect. He would invite the elders, he would invite the village, and on the night of the grand feast, he would see again. Only then would Nea know the true cost of her betrayal. The day of the feast arrived, and the village buzzed with excitement. It was rare for a man like Obora, respected and wealthy, to host a gathering when he was still grieving his sudden blindness. People whispered about his strength, about his good heart, about how lucky Nea was to have a husband so generous despite his sorrow. Under the excuse of thanking the village for their support, Obora invited everyone, elders, neighbors, friends, even distant cousins he barely spoke to. No one was left out. He even sent a personal messenger to Ifeanyi, the young farmer, making sure he would be among the crowd. After all, what good was a trap if the rat wasn't inside? Nea, unaware of the storm gathering around her, worked tirelessly to prepare. She oversaw the roasting of goats, the cooking of yam pottage, the brewing of sweet palm wine. She smiled at Obora often, patting his shoulder gently, saying how proud she was of his bravery. "You are an inspiration," she whispered in his ear, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. Obora only smiled back, a weak, broken smile that hid the fire burning in his chest. By sunset, the feast was in full swing. Music floated through the air. Drums beat loudly, dancers twirled and stamped their feet in the dust. Torches lit the village square with a warm glow, and laughter rose up to meet the stars. The smell of roasted meat and fresh bread filled the night. Obora sat on a carved wooden chair in the center of it all, playing the perfect blind man, nodding when people spoke, fumbling clumsily with his food, pretending to need Nea's guidance, to take every step. The villagers praised Nea loudly. "Look how she cares for him," they said. Such a good wife, patient and faithful. Nea beamed under their compliments, basking in the admiration. Then Obora raised his hand slowly, and a hush fell over the crowd. "My friends," he said, his voice trembling just enough to sound pitiful, "tonight I want to honor not just my wife, but all of you, for standing by me in my darkness." The crowd clapped politely. Obora continued, "But before we break more bread and drink more wine, I have a small announcement." He stood shakily to his feet. Nea rushed to his side, pretending to steady him. He let her for the last time. "I have prayed day and night," Obora said, his voice growing stronger. "I have cried, I have begged the heavens, and today the gods have answered." He paused dramatically. The villagers leaned in, breathless. Obora turned slowly, his blind eyes seeming to search the crowd. "I can see again," he said softly. Then louder, "I can see again." The square erupted into gasps and cheers. Some shouted praises to the gods, others clapped and whooped, but Nea froze beside him, her smile stuck on her face like a bad painting. Obora turned to her sharply. He looked straight into her, eyes cold, furious, unblinking. "I see everything now," he said, loud enough for all to hear. The cheers died. Silence swallowed the crowd. Obora pointed toward Ifeanyi, standing awkwardly near the wine jars, trying to shrink into the shadows. "I see you too," Obora said coldly. "I see the man who shares my wife's heart, and perhaps even my bed." The villagers gasped, their heads turning toward Ifeanyi, their mouths hanging open. Nea's face drained of color. She grabbed Obora's arm desperately. "Obora, please, it's not what you think," she cried, her voice breaking, but Obora shook her off roughly. "I have been blind too long, Nea, blind with love, blind with foolish trust." The elder chief stepped forward, his face dark with anger. "Is this true, girl?" he barked. "Answer before the gods and the people." Nea fell to her knees, sobbing, but the truth was already written across her face for all to see. Women covered their mouths in horror, men shook their heads in disgust, friends whispered furiously, some casting furious glances at Ifeanyi. Obora stared down at the woman he had once loved more than life itself, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "You could have had the world," he said quietly, "but you chose lies." He turned away from her without another word. The villagers parted for him like water for a stone as he walked through them, his steps steady, his sight clear. Tonight, the blind man had seen everything, and the whole kingdom would never forget it. The night ended in broken whispers and shattered dreams. Nea remained kneeling on the ground long after Obora had left, her tears soaking into the dusty earth. Some of the villagers turned their faces away from her, others stared with open disgust. Ifeanyi tried to slip away into the darkness, but two of the village elders caught him by the arm, dragging him roughly to the center of the square. "You think you can take another man's wife and hide like a rat?" One of them spat, his voice hard and full of shame. Another elder, older and sterner, nodded gravely. "This is not just betrayal against Obora. It is a curse upon all of us. A house built on lies brings sickness to the village." Ifeanyi pleaded for mercy, but no one was interested in his excuses. His head was shaved as punishment, a mark of disgrace. Nea, too, was stripped of her wedding jewelry and her fine new clothes. She was sent back to her father's house wearing nothing but a plain wrapper, her hair undone, her face bare. The proud, beautiful Nea, who once walked like a queen among commoners, now walked with her head bowed, shivering under the judgment of her own people. Obora, meanwhile, returned to his home, feeling the weight of silence heavier than the wildest storm. His heart ached, yes, and a deep, hollow ache that gnawed at his bones. But there was also something else inside him now, a hard, bitter pride. He had not allowed himself to be destroyed by love. He had uncovered the truth. And that was something no liar could take from him. Days turned into weeks. Nea's disgrace spread far beyond their village. Songs were made, cruel songs that children sang as they played by the river. The blind man saw, the pretty wife fell, gold on her head, but mud in her heart. Nea's father, ashamed beyond measure, arranged for her to be sent away to live with distant relatives in another village. "Better she leaves," the elders said. before her shame becomes a plague on us all." Obora did not attend her departure. He did not even look out his window when her small figure disappeared down the dusty road, carrying nothing but a sack of clothes and a basket of shame. Instead, Obora threw himself deeper into his work. He expanded his businesses, traveling farther than ever before. Townspeople began to admire him even more, not just for his wealth but for his resilience. "He lost his sight, his wife, and his peace," they said, "but he still stands tall." Women still admired him from afar, whispering about how strong he was, how handsome, how deserving of real love. Many tried to catch his attention, bringing him food, sewing him new clothes, offering soft smiles whenever he passed. But Obora's heart had changed. He was no longer the boy who believed love could conquer all. He was a man who had learned that love unchecked could destroy a man just as surely as any enemy. One evening, as Obora sat alone under the wide tamarind tree near his home, Zikora joined him. "You look tired, my brother," Zikora said, offering him a cup of palm wine. Obora took it, sipping slowly before answering, "Not tired, just wiser." Zikora chuckled softly. "Wiser men are often lonelier men." Obora smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carries old wounds. Better to be lonely with peace than crowded with lies. The two friends sat there for a long time, watching the sun sink into the horizon, painting the sky in colors too beautiful to hold. Obora had lost much. His dreams, his innocence, his marriage, but he had gained something rarer, clarity. And in the years to come, whenever the villagers spoke of the great merchant Obora, they always ended with the same words. He was the man who saw with a blind man's eyes, and never let the world blind him again. Months slipped quietly into a full year, and life in the village returned to its slow, steady rhythm. The scandal of Nea faded like an old wound, still there, still remembered, but no longer raw. Obora continued to grow wealthier, respected by all, feared by some. Yet behind his strong, steady walk, there was still a wall around his heart, a wall even Zikora could not climb. Then, on a cool evening when the winds smelled of rain and distant places, a stranger arrived. She was not like the other village women, with their familiar faces and predictable dreams. Her name was Amara, and she came from the northern valleys where the rivers ran wider and the skies seemed closer to the ground. She was not as dazzlingly beautiful as Nea had been, but there was a quiet strength about her, a deep kindness in her eyes that drew attention without even trying. The villagers, curious as ever, buzzed with gossip. "She's here to find a husband," some said. "No, she's a healer's apprentice," others insisted. "Maybe she's running from something," whispered the more suspicious ones. Obora heard all these rumors, but paid them no mind. Women were trouble, sweet trouble wrapped in soft smiles and dangerous promises. He had learned that lesson well. But fate, it seemed, had a strange sense of humor. One afternoon, while inspecting a batch of leather goods near the marketplace, Obora found himself face to face with Amara. She was bargaining fiercely with one of his traders over the price of some cloth, her voice calm but firm, her smile unwavering even as the trader tried every trick to sway her. Something about her, the fire in her, the refusal to be fooled, caught Obora's attention. "I give her the cloth at a fair price," Obora said, stepping in. The trader bowed quickly and obeyed. Amara turned to Obora, a little wary, a little amused. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice carrying the soft accent of the northern hills. "So you don't have to fight for what's already yours," Obora replied, smiling lightly. Their eyes held for a moment longer than was polite, and something unspoken passed between them. Not passion, not flirtation, but recognition. Two souls, carrying hidden scars. Days passed, and their paths crossed again and again at the well at the market during village gatherings. Each time Amara would greet him with a respectful nod or a small smile. Nothing more, no chasing, no desperate clinging like Nea had once done. It was strange for Obora, strange and unsettling. He was used to women throwing themselves at him, praising him, trying to catch his eye. But Amara, she treated him as just another man. And somehow, that stung deeper than any rejection ever could. One evening, under the tamarind tree where he and Zikora often sat, Obora found himself talking about her. "She doesn't want anything from me," he said, staring at the orange-stained sky. Zikora laughed quietly. "Maybe that's what you need, brother. A woman who sees you. Not your horses, your gold, your name." Obora remained silent for a long time. Could he trust again? Was his heart nothing but a burned-out ruin? Or did it still have some life left, hidden under the ashes? That night, as the stars blinked awake in the black sky, Obora made another decision, not out of blind hope, but cautious curiosity. He would not chase Amara. He would not fall into another beautiful trap. But if she was real, truly real, he would let her find her way into his life at her own pace. For the first time in a long time, Obora felt a strange flutter inside his chest, not love, not yet, but something better maybe, a beginning. The days grew warmer, and with them something gentle and unfamiliar began to bloom between Obora and Amara. It wasn't rushed, like the wild fire he had once felt for Nea. This was slower, softer, like a river cutting stone over many seasons. They spoke often, but never about grand things. They talked of the weather, the price of grain, how stubborn goats could be. Yet somehow in these simple conversations, Obora found more comfort than he had ever known in all the lavish gifts and sweet songs of his past. One evening, as the village prepared for the yam festival, Obora found Amara sitting by the riverside, her bare feet dipped in the water, humming a soft tune. He approached quietly, not wanting to disturb her, but she heard him anyway. "You walk like a lion trying to be a cat," she teased without looking up. Obora chuckled, something he hadn't done in a long time. "Maybe the cat forgot how to walk lightly," he replied, sitting beside her. The sun dipped low, throwing golden light across the river. Amara plucked a small flower from the grass and twirled it between her fingers. "People think strength is about showing your claws," she said, her voice thoughtful. "But sometimes real strength is about knowing when not to fight." Obora listened closely. These were not empty words. Amara spoke with the kind of wisdom that came from surviving something hard, something unspoken. He wanted to ask her, "What scars do you carry?" But he held back. He knew better now than to dig too soon. Instead, they sat in peaceful silence, sharing the cool air and the growing sense that perhaps, just perhaps, the world could still offer something good. But peace, like anything precious, is easily broken. 2 days before the yam festival, Zikora stormed into Obora's house, his face flushed with anger and worry. "She's back," he hissed. Obora stood up slowly, his heart sinking. "Who?" Zikora's mouth twisted. "Nea." Obora felt the air leave his lungs for a moment. He hadn't spoken her name in almost a year. He had thought, he had hoped. She had vanished forever. "She came with her uncle," Zikora continued, "begging the elders for forgiveness, saying she has changed, that she wants to return." Obora's fists clenched at his sides. "Return? After everything?" Zikora lowered his voice. "And the worst part, some of the elders are listening. They say everyone deserves a second chance, that you should forgive, move on, rebuild what was broken." Obora's mouth turned bitter. The same people who had cheered when he exposed her. Lies now dared to preach forgiveness. He remembered the nights spent pretending to be blind, the whispered giggles, the scent of betrayal thick in his own home. No, he had not forgotten. He would never forget. Later that evening, as he sat under the tamarind tree, Amara approached him quietly. She saw the storm brewing in his eyes and said nothing at first, just sat beside him, close enough to feel her warmth, but not so close as to invade his space. Finally, Obora spoke, his voice low and tight. "Sometimes the past refuses to stay buried." Amara looked at him carefully, her gaze steady. "The past is a ghost," she said. "It can only haunt you if you invite it inside." Obora turned to her, studying her face. Simple words, no promises, no demands, just truth. And for the first time since hearing the news of Nea's return, Obora's heart steadied. He would not let his past control him. He would not let guilt or pity chain him again. If Nea thought she could walk back into his life as if nothing had happened, she would soon learn that the man she betrayed no longer existed. The blind man was gone. Only the seer remained. The sun blazed high the next morning when Obora received the summons. One of the elders had sent word. Nea and her uncle were waiting in the council hut asking for an audience. Obora stood at his doorway for a long time, the letter clenched tightly in his hand. Part of him wanted to tear it into pieces and let the wind scatter it across the fields. Another part, the stronger, colder part, told him it was time to end this. Face her. Face everything. Zikora met him halfway to the council grounds. "Do you want me to come in with you?" he asked carefully. Obora shook his head. "No, this is my battle." When he stepped into the council hut, the murmur of conversations died instantly. All eyes turned to him, some filled with pity, others with curiosity. Nea sat on a woven mat near the center, her head bowed, her uncle beside her. She wore a plain dress, no jewelry, no colors, no signs of the proud beauty she once flaunted. Obora did not sit. He stood tall, arms folded, waiting. The eldest of the council cleared his throat. "Obora," he began, his voice slow and heavy, "Nea has come seeking forgiveness. She claims she has repented and wishes to return to her rightful place as your wife." The silence after his words was suffocating. Obora said nothing. Nea raised her face slowly, and for a moment, Obora almost didn't recognize her. Her eyes were rimmed red with tears, her cheeks were hollow. Her once bright smile was now a desperate quiver. "Obora," she said, her voice cracking, "I was foolish. I was blind to what I had. I threw away the love of a good man for nothing but shame. I beg you, forgive me." The council looked at him expectantly. Obora let the silence stretch longer, feeling its weight press on everyone's shoulders. Then he spoke, his voice clear and steady, slicing through the heavy air. "I once thought you were the sun," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "I believed your smile was truth and your touch was kindness. I gave you everything, my trust, name my future." Nea sobbed openly now, but Obora's face was unmoved. "You broke it all," he continued, "not because you were weak, but because you thought I would always forgive you. You thought love made me blind forever." He took a step forward, his voice sharpening like a blade. "But the gods were kind. They took my sight, so I could see your true face." The council members shifted uncomfortably. The elder who had spoken earlier raised a hand. "Obora, everyone makes mistakes." Obora turned to him, his voice cutting him off. "A mistake is forgetting to bring water from the river. A mistake is breaking a pot. Betrayal is a choice." The hut fell silent again. Obora faced Nea once more. "You are forgiven," he said at last, his words shocking everyone. Nea's face lit up, hope flashing through her tears. "But forgiveness is not an invitation," he added coldly. "You are forgiven, but you are not welcome." Her face crumpled. She reached out, but Obora stepped back. "I will not curse myself by taking back what the gods have already removed from my life." With those final words, Obora turned on his heel and walked out of the council hut, leaving Nea collapsed on the floor behind him, her sobs filling the air like a funeral song. The villagers watched him walk through the square, head high, heart steady, soul finally clean of her. Zikora waited by the gate. "You did well, brother," he said, clapping a strong hand on Obora's shoulder. Obora said nothing. He simply lifted his eyes to the wide, open sky, feeling lighter than he had in years. He had faced his past. He had chosen his future. And this time, he would not let anyone steal it from him. The days that followed were peaceful in a way Obora had almost forgotten life could be. No more whispers behind his back, no more pitying looks. The villagers spoke of him with new respect, telling stories around fires about how he had stood firm when tested, how he had taught them all what dignity truly looked like. But Obora didn't care about their words anymore. He was tired of being a story. He wanted to live, truly live again. It was one evening, under the wide tamarind tree where his life had seemed to stop so many months ago, that Amara found him again. She approached quietly, a small basket of roasted groundnuts in her hands. "You looked hungry," she said simply, sitting beside him without waiting for permission. Obora chuckled, a sound so natural it surprised even himself. "I didn't realize," he said, taking a few nuts and tossing them into his mouth. "Maybe I was hungry for more than food." Amara smiled, not a seductive smile, not a victorious smile, just a smile, warm and real. They sat in silence while watching the sun fall behind the hills. Then Amara spoke, her voice soft but sure. "You did the right thing with her," she said, "but you're still allowed to be happy after pain." Obora looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something. He was no longer afraid. His heart, though bruised and battered, still beat strong in his chest. It could still hope. It could still dream. "Amara," he said carefully, "I don't have many promises left in me. Life taught me not to make too many." She nodded, understanding without needing long explanations. "But," Obora continued, "I can promise you this. I will be honest. I will never pretend. I will never wear masks again." Amara reached out and took his hand, her fingers strong and steady. "That's all I ever needed," she said. In the weeks that followed, their bond deepened naturally. No grand declarations, no hurried vows, just two wounded souls choosing to walk forward together, step by step. The village watched quietly, and for once there were no gossiping tongues. Even the elders who once pushed Nea back into his life now smiled and nodded as Obora and Amara passed by. It wasn't long before Obora decided, in his quiet, steady way, to ask Amara to stay with him forever. Not as a replacement for what he lost, but as a new chapter he was ready to write. Under the tamarind tree where he had once tasted sorrow, he now found hope. And when he placed a simple braided bracelet on Amara's wrist, a humble, honest promise, she smiled with tears shining in her eyes. Not everything broken stays broken. Sometimes the cracks let in the light. And in the end, Obora learned the greatest lesson of all. True love isn't blind. It sees clearly, painfully, completely, and chooses to stay anyway.